like trains, kid never spoke a word, not even to his parents, not a single sound was heard. But on the first day of school, the teacher asked his name. All he did was smile as he said, I like trains. I like trains.
Good evening, fellow YouTube viewers. Bolch90 for another YouTube video, and today we're going to be having a look at this classic iPod Touch 4th generation, which was released in 2010, and the cat's saying hello. As you can see here, it's different to the first 3 generations of the iPod because it includes the newest feature, a camera, and also a front-facing camera, which if I bring it into focus, you'll see. It does work. It came pre-activated. It runs iOS 6, as you can see here on the screen. I haven't used an iOS 6 device since when I got the iPhone 5 brand new. So a little bit of history of the iPod Touch 4th generation. It was a device that was released on the 12th of September in 2010. So it was a little bit, I think it was a little bit after the iPhone 4 was released, and it was quite an interesting time for Apple because they started developing their own CPUs, the A series CPU as we know today, which is still being used. So this debuted with an A4 chip, which for the time it was a mixed bag. Because believe it or not, it's the same chip that was in the iPhone 4 and the original iPad. But the thing I remember with when iOS 4 was out, a lot of people were still buying the iPhone 3GS. I know this is off topic with the iPod, but this is around this period. Because the iPhone 3GS was actually like a lot of things, especially with connectivity, internet speed, was actually outperforming the iPhone 4. So a lot of people were buying it because it was a cheaper iPhone, but also it was actually outperforming iPhone 4 in certain tasks like web browsing, and it was actually in some bits a lot quicker on iOS on the operating system at the time too. But the iPhone 4 is still a good find. Nice, led to probably one of the greatest designs in Apple iPhone history. I think it was a better build design than the previous with the plastic casing, which I remember having the iPhone 3G, which is the same casing as the iPhone 3GS. After a while, it tended to crack. After a bit of use, it was prone to cracking the plastic. So I remember my iPhone 3GS cracking a lot. Not 3GS, 3G. And this device looks similar to a normal iPod. It's an 8 gig model, so I only bought this to add to the collection, and it was only $35 off eBay. It's pretty outdated of what it can do. It can't do much. It's got iOS 6. There's probably some apps that probably support iOS 6 still. I'm not exactly sure of what, but I'm pretty sure if you log into the App Store, you can download some classic apps that support iOS 6. And iOS 6 was an interesting, sort of an interesting iOS development. It was sort of the last of this old interface before it went to the iOS 7, which is the sort of the current interface of today. So this was probably the last version of this interface. But before I develop into the iOS history of this device, let's talk more about this iPod Touch 4th. So it was released on September 12th, 2010, just a couple months after the iPhone 4, because I believe the iPhone 4 was released around the summertime. So it came originally with 8, 32 and 64 gig configurations. So it only at the time when it was launched came in this black colour, which I'll put a photo of the white colour on the screen somewhere, as I'm doing this part of the white. So all it was the silver back, but this screen where it's black here was white. That's the only difference. And also that following year, the following year in October 11th, 2012, was they were still selling it with the 16 gig option, which they discontinued on the 11th of October. Because that's when the new gen, the iPod Touch 5th gen, which had a longer screen, it introduced a new connector because this had the old outdated 30-pin connector. The only issue, they discontinued the 8 and 64 gig, but they kept selling to just a couple months before they actually dropped support for this was the 16 and 32 gig, and they made a cheaper variant of the iPod Touch 5th gen. So the original operating system that it came pre-installed was iOS 4.1. And iOS 5.0 came for the white model. The last version that officially supports this version of iPod Touch is iOS 6.1.6, which had to be released later on just due to the fact of there was a lot of vulnerabilities out there at the time. So this patch got an update sent to it on the 21st of February 2014. Apparently can run an unofficial iOS 7.1.2, which I don't know about that. So it comes with the A4 chip at 800 megahertz, 256 megs of RAM. And the interesting thing is the iPhone 4 got the iOS 7 update due to it had more RAM. I think it had 512 megs of RAM. And then the interesting thing, the original iPad didn't get the iOS 6 update. It lost support at iOS 5.1.3, I believe. Had a LED backlit display, 9.60 pixels at 3.6 ppi. Had all the rear camera was a 0.7 megapixel backside illuminated sensor, HDR recording up to 722p. With 30 frames per second. And the face-on camera was 0.3 megapixels, which wasn't at the time that good. I'll see if I can get it on the viewfinder. That was a feature introduced in iOS 5 where you could slide it up, and yeah. So this is the iOS 6 camera interface. I don't know how well it's on up here, but there's a recording. You can flip it sideways. You can flip it so it's facing, and as you can see, it's facing my setup. I'm gonna tell you. What I'll do is I'll take a video. So this is the rear camera of iPod Touch 4th gen. So I'm gonna pause the video here. Hello guys, this is just testing the recording of the rear camera on iPod Touch 4th generation. I'd say it's pretty grainy. Probably not too bad for 2010. There's the iPad, and as you can see here, it's very grainy. No color camera, but anyway, guys, this is the front-facing camera on the iPod Touch 4th gen. I don't know how well you can hear me, but it doesn't look too bad on the little screen here, but yeah, that's the front-facing camera. What I'll do is I'll also take photos on this. Don't know how well the audio is going to be on this, but here we go. Sorry about that, guys. I'll just testing the camera. Yeah, so this device lost support in iOS. So the history here, this is the software history, which is off Wikipedia. I don't know how accurate it is. So it says it fully supports iOS 4, iOS 5, but has limited support for iOS 6. Unlike the iPhone 4, the device did not officially get iOS 7 due to performance issues. On November 14, 2013, Apple issued iOS 6.1.5 for iPod Touch 4th gen to fix FaceTime call failing. On the 21st February 2014, Apple issued a iOS 6.1.6 for the iPod Touch 4th generation and iPhone 3GS to fix faulty SSL verification. It was the last version for all those devices. So, let's have a look. So here's the iOS 6 So it's got your typical apps. So you got your FaceTime, which will not work very well because I've got no internet, but it shows you let's get started. and it wants all your details, so we won't worry about that later. Your calendar, which is an iOS 6 calendar. I don't know how well that is on there. Bit grainy. Photos. That's where all the photos I've took. Camera. I've seen this app before. Videos. No videos. Maps. I don't think it had the full Maps interface, like, because this introduced the Apple Maps that we use today, because there was a bit of an argument with Google at the time. So Apple developed their the iPhone Maps, like with the sat nav and the GPS, everything. You had to have the iPhone 4S and up for it to work, and I believe the iPad 4th generation and up, and maybe the iPod Touch 5th gen. The 4 and below did not support this feature. You had to have the 3GS or newer. The weather app, which is not going to detect anything because it needs my but it says Cupertino, which is where the Apple. Interesting app that was introduced in iOS 6 was Passport. So you can put your passport is so you can put all your passes, like your tickets, vouchers, all in here. This is what was renamed later on in later iOS versions to Wallet. Notes, type your notes, the old sort of notebook style app, which this all got designed overhaul in iOS 7. Reminders. It feels good to have a look at these old apps back in the day. So that's the time now in New York and Cupertino, and the time is wrong here. It's actually 8:50 p.m. I just haven't set the time right, and I haven't connected to the internet. Game Center, which was introduced in iOS 4, which is very popular, which is similar to, I believe now it might be Arcade, where you got to pay for it. But that used to be the big thing back when iOS 4 was released. Newsstand, which was introduced in iOS 5, where you put all your newspapers and news stuff on here. iTunes, which is still on devices today. App Store. This had the redesigned interface, which once I connect to the internet, I'll show you. And settings. And you'll notice something different in iOS 6 than the previous versions doesn't have. With certain apps, if you look at the top bar here, I'll zoom it in very closely, you'll notice that it's blue. This was sort of similar side effect in the following versions after, with the buttons, all that being up there, same color as the app. That's what developers eventually did with updated versions of that third-party apps with iOS 6. So nothing's really changed too much since then. Oh, one thing iOS 6 did present is you can install Facebook straight from the settings app, same as Twitter. You can install it and just put your login details in. We'll try and, well, I won't install it because I'm not connected to the internet. Yeah, and we've got stocks and your utility app, which is your voice memos. You've got your contacts, your calculator, which look different now. Voice memos, that old voice memo interface, which has been there since the original iOS 1. And the mic, this does have a built-in mic, so you can see it going up as I'm speaking right now. So it does work. I'll record well, you probably hear the audio in the video, so from my filming, so you'll hear that. So yeah, so what I'm going to do now is stop this video. What I'll do is we'll download some apps, some iOS 6 era apps. Put Geekbench on here so we can give you a rough score of what this device will run. Probably not very high, and yeah, we'll go from there. Alright, so I've just connected it to my Wi-Fi network. What we'll do is I'm going to go to settings. We'll install. I don't know if this might work. Let's see if this works. We'll install Facebook. Let's see. Yep, it's waiting. The app is incompatible with this iPhone. Interesting. What I'm going to do off camera is I want to log into the iTunes store and we'll get some iOS 6 apps. So I'm just going to start this video and I'll come. Here is the iOS 6 how you close your apps. This is for your multi-app, so you can have multiple apps open. Your multitask bar. There's a little bar at the bottom here. I believe it was introduced in iOS 4, but this is what it sort of looked like back in these older versions. You had to have the iPhone 3GS and newer to have this feature, and the iPhone 3rd gen, I believe it was 16GB and newer, because the HDM was pretty much just the 8th gig was the 2nd gen pretty much. So we'll open up the App Store. So you'll notice here it's got a redesign interface. I don't know how well it's going to, because it's still supported by Apple servers, but this is when they had the big overhaul. So it's just going to, I think I got some purchased apps. If it'll load, let me load in the purchase. Yes. So I know some games that'll work on this iPod that wouldn't work. And this is probably a good thing if you have something this old. You could probably run the old 32-bit apps that probably aren't compatible with iOS 11 and newer. Because when they drop support with the so I'll go not on this iPod. See, some of these apps are so old, or some. I'm trying to find something that would be compatible. And it's sort of hard to find these days because a lot of apps are not compatible with this iPod. Oh well, not that it's not compatible with this iPod. We'll try this. We'll try this one. Let's see what this does. What's it doing? It is very slow, this iOS 6 interface. So this application requires iOS 10 or later. Damn it. That sucks. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get on my iPad Pro here and I'll come back because I'm going to look up apps that support iOS 6 and then go from there. That are still in the App Store and look them up and download them. Okay. Alright, I'll be back. Sorry, guys. Alright, guys, I've come back. I looked up some apps that do work with iOS 6. They're installing now. I'm not sure how long it's going to take, so because it is an old iPod. I am thinking about downgrading it to iOS 4 though, if I can work out how to do that. Put the close to the original software on it, you can keep it as like a time capsule. I don't know, but I might just even leave it as iOS 6 because it's a cool time capsule from back to that period where this device had software, and yes, the cat layer is going to be YouTube famous. Just walks in the middle of the shots, but that's alright. But yeah, so I'm going to end this video. I might do another one once the apps are installed so I can get some more apps on it. I'll do some research and find out what iOS 6 apps are compatible with this device. Because at the time with iOS 6, with certain iOS, sometimes it's compatible on that iOS version, but it might not be compatible with that phone, maybe because it hasn't got a certain accelerator, it hasn't got enough CPU or RAM. So not all devices will support the same app if it's for that iOS. But anyway, I'll do another video maybe tomorrow with some apps installed and we'll have a look and see how it performs with old apps from the old days. Bye for now, thanks for watching, I'll see you next video.